Life throws you punches. Trauma, life, and burnout. I've lived through it all, and I've built something for the fighters that refuse to stay down. If you're ready to stop playing small and own your story, then this is where you belong. The Unstoppable Network is where the overcoming stories are getting very loud. From veterans to survivors to trailblazers, sharing their story of turning their pain into power. Welcome to the Unstoppable Network, where we turn your mess into a message. Welcome, folks. It's good to be back with another week at the Unstoppable Network. I'm your host, Dorothy Odell. Let us know where you're listening in from, if you wouldn't mind. And today I have the distinct pleasure of bringing to the stage Joey Chandler. Welcome to the show, Joey.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So if you wouldn't mind, share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I live in Reno, Nevada. I'm a dad, a skier, a photographer. But what I do for business is that I make core values coach, and I help people clarify their core values and, more importantly, be able to apply them to their life to create the life that they actually want.
And what made you decide to get into being a core values coach?
Yeah, I was one of those guys that didn't listen to my body real well, and I burnt out. In January of 2022, I hit a wall. I was going through divorce. My business was struggling. It was post-COVID. It was just living alone for the first time in 20-something years. And I just woke up one day and I'm like, I am absolutely done. I can't be anything but me. And then 2 days after that, I woke up and I said, well, if I can only be me, then who am I and how can I be more of that? And the who am I part led me to really explore core values. And then the how can I be more of that led me to really thinking about how can we apply our values to achieving our goals and solving our problems so that we don't burn out. Because what I learned through this whole experience, trying to be anything other than who you are is simply exhausting, and chances are won't work over time.
Wow, that is powerful, especially coming from a man agreeing that he burnt out. Sorry, I hear women all the time, so It's really refreshing to hear it from a man's perspective.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've only heard it from a man. I'm like, men do it all the time. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe.
No, you're not. But it's refreshing to hear that you actually being vulnerable to say that, and more men need to hear that.
Yeah, the interesting part, and this is the hard part I think about burnout, is I am almost certain if you had asked me, Joey, how are you doing the day before I woke up burnt out, I would have said I'm fine. I mean, my life sucks and I'm exhausted and I'm frustrated and all this stuff, but I'm fine. My ego would have kept me going in that direction. Or denying the fact that I was as bad as they are. And so that to me is the real hard part about burnout, is that if you're getting close to burnout, chances are you've ignored so many of the universe's warnings saying, hey, you might want to look here. You're like, no problems here. But then the universe says, well, gave you a warning, and we're just gonna, I'm gonna take everything away. And the real beauty of that for me is that what it taught me is that you can be at the very bottom, as low as you possibly can be, and you still have values, you still have worth. And the question really becomes, asking yourself, what are my values and how can I put them to use today? And what helped me recover was day after day of simply asking that question. My values are connection, curiosity, and fun. And I basically started waking up every day. How can I bring a little connection, a little curiosity and fun to my day? And when I was burnt out, it was, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go to the bathroom, I'm going to get a drink of water, I'm going to get back into bed. That was that was all I could do. But I could celebrate that because that's what I did. And so I did that, baby step, baby step, baby step. And eventually the baby steps turned to bigger steps. And within a few months, I was back to actually better off than I was before, but I had recovered. And so I just really taught me being anything other than yourself just sucks, for lack of any a better word.
Can I ask what you did before you decided to become a coach?
Yeah, so I was a photographer and a videographer.
Photographer, right?
And
Photographer.
yeah, and one of the things that when you look at core values, you really start to see how those values already show up. So for me, I was a family photographer. I was really good at just capturing I called it real beauty, just natural. I wasn't great at weddings. I wasn't really great at posing people, but there was something about my ability to connect with people, get in their world and take pictures that reflected who they are. And I started to see that as just, I had the ability to see people's greatness, and that showed up in my photography, that showed up in my videography. And then when I started to understand it more, it's what makes me a good coach. I figure out I help people see their greatness, understand their values. And then we just start to say, hey, how can we bring more of that special sauce that you are to your business, to your relationships, to your podcasting, to your whatever. And, but that's because I just know people have something great. I know if I did a video about them, if I did photos of them, I can see that greatness. And even if they don't see it, I know it's there, and it's just my job to help them be able to see it and to give them the tools to take greater advantage of it.
Right. I love that. Isn't it beautiful when you see something in other people that they don't see in themselves? They're like, well, I don't see that.
Yeah. And there was a moment, I don't remember the circumstances of this, but I very much remember the day when I was having a bad day, and I realized, like, oh, wait a minute, there must be greatness in me. If I can see it in everybody else, I can see it, and I had plenty of evidence and proof that I knew I could. Mm-hmm. I'm nothing special. I must have greatness in me. And that was one of those days where I was like, no, that can't be true. Because if that was true, my life wouldn't suck as much as it does. And, I wouldn't be struggling. But when I took that deep breath and said, okay, there must be greatness in me, I just need to be able to see it myself and put it to use. And that, unfortunately, it took me burning out to really get that lesson, but I had that lesson earlier.
Right. I'm just writing that down. It's funny. We see everything good about other people, but we have a hard time seeing it in ourselves. Yep. And I'm on this journey right now myself. I've been taking this. I've done tons of personal development, tons of looking deep within, like what brings me joy, what brings me stuff like that. But I never, in the world of chaos that I had lived in, because something was always going on, I always believed the worst parts about myself, but never believed the good about it. And then these last 2 years, I'm just like, no, like, if I can believe the bad, why can't I believe the good? Right. And so I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I have people tell me all the time really great positive things about me and what I do and how I help people. But seeing it sometimes in yourself is like hard to see. Right. And you're right. Like when you're going through a crappy relationship, or you've been in an abusive relationship and you leave, you're like, and you're down and out, you have no idea. I'm speaking for myself personally. Like, you're like, well, how did I allow myself to get into that? What kind of person falls for that? Right. And it's really hard to see the good in that.
Yeah. One of the, the interesting parts is the reason we can see the greatness in others is because we're not present to all the mental fears and doubts and worries that are going on in their head. Because what happened is when people said, Dorothy, you're amazing, you can do this and all these things, your brain was like, yes, but they don't know all these shitty things that all these bad things that I've done. They don't know what a dirtbag I am or how horrible I am because I haven't done this, and this. They don't know all those things. And one of the things I've come to learn, I didn't realize this in taking photos and stuff. But in working with people in core values, it becomes very, very clear. As soon as you set a goal, and in this case, maybe someone is actually setting the goal for you. Like the goal is you accepting how awesome you are. As soon as you set that goal, what turns up in your brain are some doubts and fears and worries. I suck. I'm not good enough. They don't know what they're talking about. Whatever that is. And those are all mine. I'm guessing you have, you may have your own.
Yeah.
But that is triggered by the amygdala in our brain. That is triggered by, there's nothing flawed about it. It's actually our brain working to keep us safe. Because if you were to really accept how awesome you are, that would require you to take some other actions, and that require you to put yourself out more. That would require you to live true to that awesomeness. And in this day and age, our brain is so afraid of us disappointing ourselves, being an embarrassment, getting embarrassed because we failed. So our brain keeps us safe, free of that, that embarrassment, that disappointment, by telling us how awful we are and how much we suck to keep us safe. So what and ultimately it comes down to is that our fears are always louder than our values. So you need a system, and this is the part that I do differently with core values, that you need a system that acknowledges your fears because they're real, and then you say, hey, what do my values say to do?
Right. Interesting. Okay. I've never heard it that way before. That is pretty cool. But you're right. Our fears are our loudest things. And, sometimes just, sometimes you got to allow it to come out so you can get it out, and then, tell them to just disappear. Those bad negative thoughts.
Well, and this is the part that I've started just accepting, like they are going to show up. It's part of your human. It's the way we're designed. They're not going to go away. And I really, this really hit me last year when the United States invaded Iran the first time. Whenever that was like in late June. And I can remember waking up and just because I have an 18-year-old son, and so my head went to like, okay, if they instituted a draft or all that kind of stuff, none of which was like 100% logical, but that was a very real fear for me. And it was in that moment that I realized, like, there's not a level of therapy on the planet that I could have done that would have stopped that fear from showing up.
Yeah.
I think if your country invades another country, it is reasonable to have some fears and doubts show up.
Yep. Yeah.
And I could do all the internal work, but that external stuff was there. And the same thing goes for me. Like there's going to be stuff that gets triggered in me that fears are going to come up. So I've stopped trying to make the fears go away. Instead, we put a system in place that allows you to acknowledge those fears and then act based off your values. And then go forward from there. But your fears show up, and when you start to explore this, you see how they're like sneaky little buggers, because not only do they show up when you set a goal, you're like, oh, this is the goal I really want to go after, but I can't do that, so I'm going to go after this one that's uninspiring but seems achievable. They show up there. They show up when you set the plan. So you're like, oh, I got this awesome goal. Like, yeah, but you're not going to be able to do it. So don't really bother doing the plan. So we don't really create the plan. Then even after you have the plan, they're like, yeah, you have the plan, but you know what? You suck. So don't bother trying to take actions. And then after you fail or you struggle with the plan, you miss a day, a week, or a month, or whatever it is. Of course, you're going to think like, okay, I want to get that restarted. And then your brain's there like, yeah, you failed. Don't bother trying, Don't worry about that. You're going to, it's not going to work out. So don't try to restart that project. And that's just all our fears. That's just operating our fears.
Right. Wow. It's kind of like you've been in my head the last couple of weeks.
The amazing part is, and I get told that all the time, they're like, how did you figure, like this was going on? And all it is, like really what it is just coming from the question of what are my values and how can I make use of them today? And me asking that question over and over again and working with people, I know that you have goals. I know one, you have values. I know two, that you have goals. And as soon as you set a goal, whatever your version of I can't do it, I suck, or whatever that is, will come up. And then I also know that if we knew your values, we could say, hey, what do your values say to do? And that would give you some actionable thing that is energizing and empowering and allow you to take whatever steps are forward. It's really fun. It's really cool. And I'm flattered that people are like, wow, it's so amazing. But it really is just based on the system.
Right. Wow. And so you just take people through a series of questions then, and that determines their values. And then you just basically keep putting that in front of them, saying, okay, when they get triggered, or I like to call it the sabotage wheel, because you're right. You'll set your goal, you'll get so far, and then you self-sabotage. And, then the cycle goes until you get yourself psyched back up and you try and go at it again. And then the cycle continues.
Let me ask you this. Is there some like guilt or shame in calling it a sabotage wheel?
No, I don't know. I guess maybe that's how I've always interpreted it to be. It's just sabotage, like self-sabotage.
The reason I ask is I've been playing with this, and really what's there is it's designed to keep you safe. Yeah. It's your safety wheel. If there is anything, it's doing its job. So it's not like intentionally sabotaging you. It's just trying to keep you safe. And when you give it that space, then in my mind, then I don't feel as bad. I don't feel as guilty or as shame, like, oh, I'm a bad person or I'm flawed or whatever it is. It's like, oh, my brain is really good at keeping me safe. And sometimes that safety means I'm going to stay in bed all freaking day, but that's what's there. Because I do, Brene Brown talks a lot about guilt and shame, and it is one of those things that just kind of weighs down, and it gets in the way of us celebrating the fact that the only reason those doubts and fears come up is because we are trying to move forward. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason they're there. If you weren't trying to elevate your life, improve something, those doubts and fears wouldn't show up. So you're doing something. It's just that our brains are wired to keep us safe, and it's doing all it can to do that. And you need an alternative system.
Well, you're right, because I'm up to something extremely huge. And of course, that takes everything that I don't know anything about and taking a giant leap of faith through it all. So yes, I agree with you there. And there's something that I heard from my mentor this week, my coach and mentor. She says, sorry, something along the lines of, I'll probably mess this up, and that's okay. Like when you start doing those micro things for you, like don't give up on yourself. Like say you set a goal, but it's so easy to say, especially for yourself. For somebody else, I can do it all day long. But for me, like say I set a goal, I want to work out 3 days a week. But then, so maybe the first week I'll do it once. And then, oh, well, failed. But keeping that promise, that's what it was. Keeping promises to yourself. And so it's funny because I started this weekend. I'm like, because I've been telling myself I needed to do this specific workout because I did it before and everything worked great and everything was wonderful. And then I gave it up. Because, that's what I do, do it for so long. And then, you get bored of it. And so I started that and I was so proud of myself. So I thought, so then I did a little bit more and a little bit more of some of the goals and stuff that I'm trying to achieve. Like I have a golf tournament coming out in August 8th that I put on every year for my dad. He passed away of cancer. This will be our 5th year doing this. And so each year it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And now I'm just like, I'm not sabotaging it, but I'm like, there's something there. The fear is there saying, okay, because I put it out there that this is the biggest year ever and it's 5-year anniversary. So we got to make it huge. And I'm getting a lot of opposition. Like, I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's so brilliant. One, I'm sorry to hear about your father, and huge kudos to you for taking that and doing what you've done for the tournament. And this is why I don't think fears, I don't think trying to make our fears go away does any good, because again, you've been doing great for 3 or 4 years and that's nothing, but now you have this bigger goal of the 5th year anniversary and it means a little bit more. And so to me, it's like as soon as you ask someone on a date and then to go steady and then get engaged and then married, and every time you raise the level of commitment, new fears show up. Like it just happens. But if you like, I can ask you the questions that I walk people through and see if it helps you out at all.
Sure. Why not? We'll do it live. We'll do it on the spot.
We'll do it on the spot. Is that okay? I don't mean to press you, but I think it might.
Sure.
Is that okay? So the first question the first 2 questions are really about priming the pump, so to speak. So the first thing is, what is something that you can celebrate about yesterday?
I took deep breaths to get through it.
Okay. You took a deep breath or breaths?
Breaths to get through it.
Awesome.
Yes.
You took some deep breaths to get through yesterday. Okay,
yep.
Perfect. Now, what did you learn from that?
Good question. Not everything is as big as it seems, I guess.
Okay, perfect. So the reason we ask what can you celebrate about yesterday is that triggers dopamine in your brain, gives you a sense of like, hey, I accomplished something. Then what did you learn from it gives you proof that you've grown from yesterday. Like it puts you into a growth mindset. And then the third question is what's your goal? What's your most pressing goal? So for your golf tournament, what's your most pressing goal with that?
I want to raise over $10,000 this year.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. You want to raise $10,000. Now, when you think of that, what's the fears, the doubts, the worries that come up for you?
With the economy, no one's going to show up. I'll never get the sponsors that I had last year. I don't even want to bother asking some of them, Yep. I don't want to bother anybody.
Yep, I don't want to bother anybody. There's also, it sounds like I can't do it or it won't work out, something like that. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So we're just going to acknowledge none of those are 100% true, but they're very much real for you. So we just acknowledge that. And then, and I actually forgot to ask you this, but like, do you know your core values?
My core values. Well, I would say integrity.
Okay.
Having fun.
Yes.
Being kind.
Okay.
I'm
going to say creativity, something like that. Is that in your world?
Yeah, I'm creative. Like I'm creative different.
It's okay.
So when I think of creativity, my mother is a amazing craft. She does crafts like crazy, right? My craft is interviewing people and stuff like this. Like that is my being creative and just like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say the ones I heard, creativity, kindness, and fun.
Yeah. And integrity. Integrity is number one. Yeah.
So integrity, I'm going to say actually would be underneath all those 3.
Okay.
Like you have like that's just how it's hard for you to be kind if you don't have integrity, right?
Okay.
And it's hard to have fun if there's not a lack of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say this is that words like integrity and authenticity and those sorts of things, over time, they tend to be very heavy for people. And they don't inspire a sense of fun and play. They're very important. But if I were just hanging out, or if we were younger, if we were kids, integrity isn't the word you'd come up with. You would be kind, you'd be creative, and you'd be having fun.
Right. Cool.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So that sounds cool.
And we can tweak these. There's a better way to do this, but I'm just kind of going off of our conversation. Right. But so if you brought a sense of kindness, fun, or creativity to raising that $10,000, what might you be able to do?
Just reach out to people and just have like a fun conversation.
Yeah. See how they're doing. Right. And then, just check in with them. Absolutely. And what else might you do? Like, this is just a brainstorming. Like, there's not a, like,
just make it playful and maybe ask people for help. Like I've done this. I've had help like the day of the tournament, but forming some kind of committee to come alongside me and help would be probably good. Like, People who are there people that would love to contribute to this event?
that
Right.
would, and find out, you don't know.
That's right. I don't.
So with all that in mind, what's one thing that you can do today?
Just reach out to somebody that I've been putting off reaching out to.
Okay. And do you have that person in mind? You don't have to tell me,
Uh,
but do you know who that is?
well, I can bring up my list from last year and start reaching out to them.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. You go through your list. And is that something you could do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so those are the 6 questions. What can you celebrate? What did you learn from that? What's your goal? What's the fear that comes up regarding that goal? What do your values say to do? And then from that list of ideas, what's one action you can take? And the end result of this is that you will have more clarity, more confidence, and more energy. And is that true for you right now?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because my mentor says, be the person, don't do. Like, don't less doing and more being. So basically, that's kind of what I hear you saying, only a different way.
It is. And what this does is just gives you a framework. The questions give you a framework to do that, because she's not wrong, but sometimes it's hard to just, I'm all of a sudden going to, be awesome. Like there's the doubts. And this is why. So each of those 6 questions are actually based on a ton of research. Celebration is from the positive psychology world, and about the dopamine. What did you learn from it? That's Carol Dweck, growth mindset. The learning is there's a ton of research that when you name your goal, it gives you focus and direction. The fear part is from research about the amygdala and how the brain just deals with fears. And then the core values aspect, they really trigger our curiosity and our innovation and our creativity, and allows you from exploring. And then when you choose one action, that you're choosing an action based off of your intrinsic motivation. So that gives you more clarity, more confidence, more energy. So you're just more likely to do it. So each of those questions are backed by research, and it makes a difference. But what I've done that's different is it's the combination and the order of them. You can't actually let go of that fear without celebrating yourself first. And it's each of the 6 questions that makes the difference. And so what I do with my clients, and myself included, we start off every day asking those questions, going through, and then when we get stuck, when we're frustrated, or when we need to, you're going to go into a big sales call, you're going to ask someone out on a date, you want to be at your best, you can go through those questions, and it just allows you to acknowledge the fears that are there and step into your values, which is your true self. That's who you are. Creative, kind, and fun is who you are. And by bringing that to the situation, you're just being more of yourself in that area. And in my eyes, that will give you the best chance of finding a solution. Doesn't guarantee results, but if there is a way for you to raise that $10,000, I'm going to guess that it's based more on kindness, fun, and creativity than nobody wants to hang out with me. They'll say no, all that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, I know everybody wants to hang out with me. I'm the fun person to hang out with, right? Yeah. It grows every year because everybody has fun at the event, and it's called the Fun Classic for a reason.
Oh, awesome. Yes.
The Don Grand Memorial Fun Classic.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Exactly. And now, and here's the part you can go like, hey, you've come to this event and had such a great time. Would you like to have fun being a part of putting it on? Would being a part of putting on be fun for you? And then and some people will be like, yeah, but I can't. And some people will be like, oh my God, thank you. Yes. But if you just ask them, would putting this on be something that would give you a sense of fun and a sense of creativity and allow you to really be kind and contribute to the world? Would that be part of it? Then people will be like, they'll say yes or no, but they'll appreciate you asking them.
That is true. That is true. Thank you, Joey. I did not expect all this to come out.
Yeah, it's really funny, and I just want to applaud you for being willing to step into that. And for the listeners, we didn't talk about this at all.
No, we didn't.
So I just want to applaud you. And I do that honestly, because it's far easier to do the system and have people experience it, and that smile on your face and all that. It's far easier to do that than try to explain it intellectually.
Right. Well, I know you sent me a message saying, hey, if you want to, I offer podcast host the experience if you want to do it. And I unfortunately didn't have time to fill it out. When I got home, I looked at it. I'm like, I don't have time to do this.
Yeah.
So it's funny how it all worked out anyways. We didn't even talk about it, and we got to do it real time so people can actually see how you help your clients, which I think is more beneficial than me sitting there for 10, 15 minutes before you and trying to get it done.
There's both sides to it. And just so people know, it only takes about 5 minutes. It's just 3 questions to identify your core values. And that's at my website, certaingrowth.com. There's a link for what I call the refinement system. It's 3 questions, and you'll identify your values within about 5 minutes.
And to be quite honest, I had just had a long day at work, and I didn't want to look at it.
That's totally fine. But here's the beauty of it. Here's what I love about it. Like, fun as a value is so prevalent in your life that it's a name, it's like, so there, you didn't have to think about it at all. It just was there. And that, like creativity and the kindness. And one thing is funny, I'm sort of sensing maybe contribution versus kindness. I don't know if that is there, but that's.
You got me, sir, because I contribute to pretty much anything that comes my way.
Yeah. So, and here's the real beauty of that. Okay. So I think that creativity, contribution, and fun, like, yes. And here's the fun part. You're probably really good at contributing to others, and maybe not so good at helping them letting them contribute to you.
Possibly.
Just saying, that's a common thing. But then you can explore it.
I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, no. There's probably places where you're really good and places where you struggle. And now you can say, hey, would being a part of the fun tournament be a contribution to your life? You can ask people, and they'll be like, well, I don't know. You're like, well, we have these sorts of things. What would you like to do? And because I want this to be a contribution to you as a volunteer. And some people will be like, well, I would love to do XYZ, or I really like this or that sort of thing. And then they would be contributing to you, and you would be contributing to them.
That is true. So that is. It's funny because I grew up with parents that were like, okay, they would do for everybody, but they wouldn't allow people to do for them, because then you would owe somebody. Yep. Right. That was how my parents taught us. And so until I was after I left my my abusive relationship, and I ended up needing help. I had no other choice but to accept it. And so I found myself in this extremely vulnerable place, and for the first time in my life, and accepting help from a lot of these people. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter if they're going to want something from me later. It doesn't matter, because I'm willingly give whatever I had left anyways. And so when you hit rock bottom at a certain level, and the only way up is to ask others for help, that's when I started learning to say, okay, people, it is people's honor and gift to actually be able to help other people. But if you don't receive that gift, then it's like you're putting up that wall for everything to come into your life, right? And so I had a really hard time accepting that, but I'm getting better at it.
Yeah. And this is where you can go through the 6 questions. You can go through the goal of like, I want, you celebrate yourself. What do I learn from that? Then you have the goal of like, I want to be able to receive people's gifts. I want to be able to do that. And then what's the fear that comes up with it? I'm going to owe someone, or whatever that is. And then what do your values say to do? How can I bring some fun, some creativity, or some contribution to that? And then what action can I take? That's just you working through how to be more of you in the situation where you're saying like, how do I receive? Like, what's the best way for me to receive and do it in a way that works, as opposed to, basing off of the fear of, I'm not, this won't work out, or I'll owe them too much, so I shouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. Or I'll look bad. What if they think I actually am, what if they think I really do need help, which you do, but what are they going to think? And, so all of those, like those little situations, like we use the questions now, like I do them 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, depending on what's going on. But it's just, it's just the fastest and most effective way that I found to get in a situation where you can take an action that aligns with your values and serves a particular goal.
That is crazy. That is crazy good, like crazy in a good way. All these little tricks that learning over the years, to help us get to the next level, because something will work for a little bit and then, then it doesn't. But this seems pretty simple.
Well, so. It's simple and it's repetitive, because this year I read a bunch of books on relationships. I read Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel, and Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski, and No More Mr. Nice Guy, and just a bunch of books on sex and relationships and whatnot. And the across the board, even though they're coming from very different perspectives, the main thing that I saw is that we as people, we need to be able to say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do and don't want in a relationship and sexually. This is, and then you got to be able to express that to your partner, and then hear their versions of it coming back, which all is confronting because we're not very good at that. And then the part that you really have to do is you got to be curious, because what worked last week may not work this week. And it most certainly, you can't assume that it will work next week. So you have to bring this constant curiosity. And the real great part about those 6 questions is that because the way they're structured, they inherently trigger your curiosity. Like, hey, how can I how can I make dating a sense of contribution? Like I have,
don't be a jerk on a date.
Well, that would be one, right? No, I have this story here that just went through, and I don't want to talk too much, but I have someone close to my life, not a client, but somebody close to me. She she started a relationship with someone that she had known for many years. It was like a friend. Like they'd gone out to dinner, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, we're hanging out, and we're more than friends now." It was awesome, super happy, and over like a month or 6 weeks, like just really, really, it was just good. It was just good. And then she came to me and she's like, but I'm starting to feel like there's this thing that something's not right. I don't know what it is. I can't put it on, but there's this push and pull that I don't know. And I don't know what to say. And because she's like, this is really good. And I said, well, I don't know, but let's go through. We'll figure out your values and we'll see what this, how this works. And one of her values was contribution. And so we went through the process, and I just asked her, I'm like, how do you need this relationship to be a contribution to you? And she's like, I've never thought of that. I've never thought of a relationship as a contribution to me. I know how I contribute to them, like I know that, but I've never thought about what a relationship that would, fill me up, that would fulfill me. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, how would a relationship contribute to you? And she said, she thought about it for, a minute or two. And she said, I don't need a lot. Like we live in different towns. We're not moving in together. This is not, we're not, but what I do need is I need to have some certainty, because for this to be a contribution to me, I need to know that we're on the same page. Right. And I said, okay. And I said, can you talk to him about it? And she's like, no, I can't break, because she got scared.
Bingo.
Right? Bingo. She got scared, which is totally normal, right? You think something like, oh, I need to say this. And you're like, no, can't do that. And I said, okay, well, but at least now you know. And I think it was a week or two later, she came to me and she's like, we talked about it. And I was like,
Good.
oh, what happened? It's like, awesome. And so it turns out he was seeing somebody else in another town.
Oh,
And it was a bummer. And she was like, I'm sad. But she said, I'm really proud of myself for having the courage to speak up.
yes.
And I'm so glad to know now, 6 or 8 weeks into it, rather than waiting and wondering for 6 or 8 months.
Mhm.
And so while that was not it's not the fairy tale romance that we wanted to hear,
Right.
it was her standing up and saying, hey, what are my values? What is a relationship that would contribute to those values? And what do I need to do? And she had the courage to get past that fear of not wanting to talk and then moving forward. And it really, it made a huge difference for her. And it was awesome to see.
Right. Absolutely. It's funny because sometimes the hard conversations that we have to have, that we put off having, are the ones that make all the difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I, for instance, love my husband. We both need to work on communication. I didn't come from a background where communication was big in the household growing up. Neither did he. And so it takes something to do that. But you're over here fretting. But the moment I had that conversation, it's just like a weight lifted right off of me. And it was not a huge deal like I made it out in my head to be. And it's funny, if we just had that conversation, we could have saved ourselves a lot of misery.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. And one thing that I'm starting to play with, so I'm single, so I don't have this is not like a proven theory, but
Right.
my theory is that if your husband were to know your values of contribution, creativity, and fun, and then you were to know whatever his values are, he could do the questions, and then he could say, how could I bring a greater sense of contribution, creativity, and fun to our relationship? How can that help? What would those do? And he'd come up with some ideas, and you would do the same with his values. That would allow you to create the space where both of you can be more of yourself and explore and have fun with it and play with it and laugh about it and all those things. And it also just gives a structure. Like your husband can be like, okay, creativity. And, he could talk to you, be like, what does fun really mean to you? And, and to really explore that. And what does creativity really mean? And explore that. And what would be a contribution to you? And explore that. Then he has a greater chance of winning. And that's what guys want, right? We just want to win. We want to win. And sometimes, when relationships get muddied and all that stuff, it's hard for a guy to win. And I'm not saying there's not work that the guys want to do or need to do, but guys want to win. And sometimes women are like, you are not winning. I am not giving that to you. and I say that as someone, my ex-wife, we have a great relationship. And she's like, yeah, no, you were not going to win. Because you didn't do, I had my list of all the things that you didn't do, which were 100% true. She's 100% right. But she got a list. And once that list gets a little too long, it's really hard to win. And guys, we just want to win,
But does she ever communicate that list to you?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But I didn't have the awareness around the fears and doubts. So
right.
she would be like, hey, I want to work on our finances. I want to be able to buy the house and I want to do this. And I'd be like, yeah. And my fears of this will never work out. There's no way I can make this happen, would just come up and get in the way of me doing the work that was necessary to do that.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Joey, because that is important. I mean, some people don't even have give the clues. Like, you should just know, right? As a woman, I see things completely different. And there was a time, not now, I've done a lot of work, figuring this out. Well, he should just know what I'm thinking, or he should just know what I want, right? And not communicate it. But that's just dumb, right? And there's no way any of you are going to win by having that attitude. And so, that has definitely shifted. And when I started really telling him what I actually need, oh wow, then things started happening.
Yeah. And this is where though knowing your values is really helpful for a guy. Like I a bit of a long distance relationship with not a relationship, few dates. Like, let's just say there was some heavy flirting.
Right.
We identified a particular woman. Her values were, one of her values was adventure, and so I just started speaking to adventure. Like, what was adventurous for her? Like, oh, what have you done? And just honoring and celebrating that. I didn't know any of her details of her life, but because I knew that one thing, I could speak to it. And she was like, how do you know me so well? And I'm like, I'm just speaking to, because I'm just speaking to a sense of adventure. Like, I don't even know what that means exactly, but the more that I could, and so I don't think we can expect people to know all the details about us like that. I just think that's probably impossible.
Right.
But I think a relationship where you know each other's values and you just make an effort to bring more of those values to to the race, that's going to allow the person to be more of themselves. They're going to feel safer. They're going to feel supported. And my theory is that more of the good things that we need in relationships will happen, and it will allow people to stay in that sense of curiosity and love. And does this feel good, or no, that doesn't feel good, and all that kind of stuff. It's a good idea, and I hope I'm not getting too graphic in that. But that's
there's a lot of great nuggets that you have landed here today for us, Joy, and I appreciate that. And hearing it from the male's perspective for me has been extremely enlightening. Like, I've had a couple male coaches come on and speak about their craft and different things, and I learned so much from each one of you, that it's just like, it's refreshing, because I know it from a female perspective and I see it from this side, and I don't get to hear it from the male side too often. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, I can't believe I usually only go like half hour, and I can't believe that we're almost at the top of the hour here. So thank you. But I didn't want to stop you, because there was just so much great stuff coming out of this. So where's the best place that people can find you?
Yeah, it's thecertaingrowth.com. That's my website. And the main thing I suggest people do is go through, do the system to identify your values. And if it makes sense, if you're like, hey, I would love to have more of these values in my life, schedule a call with me, and I'll walk you through the process of how I train people. Because it's not complicated, but it does take practice. Because the fact of the matter is that we all have far more experience being who we think we should be rather than who we actually are. And so even after we do identify our values, you got to build up the muscles. And I have a 3-month program that just basically helps build up those muscles and allows you to create the life that you want in using your own values.
Love it. So go check out certaingrowth.com. Tell them that the Unstoppable Network sent you. And please share this particular episode with those people in your life that really are stuck and need something, just something small, but something consistent to, have the life that you desire instead of the life that you're living. Unless your life is perfect, then don't bother. But I mean, I don't think anybody's life is perfect. With that, though, if anybody would like to be a contribution to the August 8th golf tournament, please let me know. Connect with me today. I would greatly appreciate it. Or if you just want to be a sponsor of the event, we still have room for that. And of course, this is a truly international event. We have golfers coming all the way from Niles in Illinois this year. So we've had Illinois in the house, we've had Indiana in the house, we've had Michigan in the house. So, I mean, this is truly international. So anybody's welcome. Just connect with me. We'll get you registered and get you going. And again, thank you so much, Joy. This has definitely been truly a learning experience for me tonight. So I do appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Unstoppable Network, and share with all your friends. See you same time, same channel next week.